Hi, welcome to the Divorce Allies podcast. It's a podcast about transitions and life changes and sometimes dealing with things before, after, and during divorce. So my name is Melissa Gragg, and I'm a financial mediator in St. Louis, and I've authored several books that you guys have all been privy to. But today we're going to talk about some interesting topics. So my guest today is a luxury real estate broker. She's also a professional ballroom dancer. She's also the future Miss Senior America and a spiritual leader in Connecticut. Please welcome Robin Kencel to the podcast. So today we're going to discuss women in life transitions and how to reset your body, mind, and soul after 50. So welcome, Robin. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you. I'm great. It's a little bit overcast here in Connecticut, but no matter.
Right. We're gonna bring the sunlight, right?
Yeah, we're sunny inside.
So I mentioned a bunch of things that describe you, right? And of course,
Yes.
originally when we met, the luxury real estate broker was like so impressive. And then we started talking and all of these other such unique and interesting
Right.
things, even Miss Senior America. So
Yeah.
why don't you give us a little bit of background about you, your journey, how'd you get
Yeah.
to be where you are? Because I found it very interesting and very applicable to the topic today as we're talking about women in transition, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Melissa. It's great to be here. So I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut, and my parents and grandfather operated a nursing home. And as you know, nursing homes never close. And I think I was used to that pace that you just never are sitting down relaxing. There's always something to do. The other thing is, being that my parents owned it, my siblings and I were held to a very high standard right from the get-go, that here we're responsible for 73 other lives plus staff. So residents plus staff. And we had to set the example. And that has been in my mind for all these years. So I basically have followed things that have interested me, to be honest. Yes, I am a real estate broker now. I went to business school with the idea of going back to my parents' nursing home and running it. But when I got out of business school, I thought, where can I learn the best skills in business? And that is one of the things I always try to do. Whatever I'm doing, I want to find the best teacher and go there. And so that led me first to Johnson and Johnson in New Jersey. And I was working in consumer products. I introduced the first ovulation predictor test to the consumer market. Who knew?
Wow.
And so, I stayed in corporate America until I just felt I can't write another business plan. And I thought about, what do I love in this job? And what am I really good at? Because I think if you can combine what you're good at and what you love and what serves others, then that trifecta really is very fulfilling. So from there, I opened a strategic planning company. I shifted to nonprofit. I worked for Georgetown University in the arts and sciences. I introduced the first electronic medical information system for a company. And, when that got to be too much, on the side, I was always renovating houses because after coming out of grad school, we had no money. We just had a whole lot of debt. And I bought my first townhouse under construction on MasterCard for my down payment, $3,500. I I like interior design, so I customized it. And when it finished, I turned to my future husband and said, I'm going to sell this, and I think I can make a couple dollars. I made $35,000, and
Wow.
we put that into our next property in Bronxville, New York, and it kept going. But what I was doing is actually learning that I love rehabbing old homes. I absolutely love it because I love working with teams. And so that has been a career that I have had alongside, my paid job, until eventually I couldn't do both. And so then I had a whole career in owners repping other people who were renovating homes, until a friend of mine pulled me aside and said, you need to be in real estate. Between your background in design and business and negotiation. And 22 years ago, I made the flip. And that real estate journey has been incredible. What I love about real estate is that every day is different. Every client is different. You are always learning something. I've got a great team of all women now. And so that's the business part. But when I was in college, my passion was dance. It's always been dance. And it's taken different, turns. And one year when I was 45 years old, I was at my local gym and I had just come back from my 25th reunion where people asked if I still danced. I'm like, no, I have kids. But that bothered me. And I said that to the cardiologist who was on the treadmill next to me. And he pointed to another part of the room. He said, that guy over there does ballroom. Why don't you ask him where he's doing ballroom? And I went over and asked him, and I showed up at this studio and they started working with me. They're like, wait a second, you know how to perform? I'm like, yes, I actually love to perform. And so that's been another 20-year journey where I am a very competitive amateur part of a pro-am couple. And I've been lucky enough to win 7 national titles. I was number 1 in my age division last year. I just got back from nationals where I was a finalist last week. It is not just dress up in great gowns, hair, and makeup. It is hard work and discipline. But I am somebody, going back to the title of today, that is very mind, body, spirit. And for me, my center point, the core of who I am, is really God. And it's really me wanting to please God. It's as simple as that. So everything is an undercurrent to that belief and that joy that I feel knowing that there's something so big that loves me. So going down that spiritual path, I have some spiritual practices, but one 5 years ago was becoming a spiritual director. And that is where I walk alongside of somebody who wants to get closer to God. Whatever their version of God is, I am here to listen and micro listen. And the things that I hear that I think could be helpful, I will just place in front of you, like we're panning for gold. And you meet once a month. I have had my own spiritual director for 30 years. And I can't tell you, Melissa, what happens, but I can tell you that hearts change and people grow and their relationships with their divine really take flight.
Now, how did all of this lead you? Because, like, when you said you didn't just say you were doing ballroom dancing, like professionally competing in ballroom dancing, but then also you have talked about this, the Miss Senior America.
Yes,
This is,
yes,
and I am manifesting that for you, that by the time everybody starts seeing this on the replay, that it has happened. But what did that entail? Like, how did you get connected to
yeah,
be in this space and have this
yeah.
opportunity?
Well, here's what I would say about that. This is why we always have to keep our eyes and ears open wherever we are because we do not know what's coming our way. One of my real estate clients is a fabulous woman, and she's much, much younger. And she was in the Miss USA prep time while I was helping them purchase a home. And I was watching her journey, and she was so excited, and it looked so fun. I am always looking for ways to improve my performance self for ballroom. And I looked at her and I thought, wow, I wonder if they have anything for an older gal like me. And as I Googled, I found this Miss Senior American. What I loved about it is here is what you're judged on. 30% is your interview with the judges. Well, I love it. I mean, I love talking to people, and they basically, you fill out an application and they can ask you anything on the application or not. 30% is your talent. Until this year, they did not allow ballroom. So it's you could dance, but not with a partner. 20%, and here's the best part, you have to deliver your philosophy of life speech in 35 seconds, memorized to the audience. Melissa, it is so hard to put down in 35 seconds. You're everything. You're everything. I mean, I sweat. I'm a writer and I sweat over that for weeks and months. And then the last part is 20% your gown walk. And it's not about the gown, hair, and makeup. It's about how you wear the gown, how you carry yourself, your confidence. And here's the interesting part of the journey. So I did this in 2024 and I won Connecticut. All good, did a modern dance. 3 weeks before the national pageant was the Ballroom Dance Championships in Orlando, Florida. And we were dancing pretty well, but we were not placing well. And my head coach said, "You need to make them see you. They're not seeing you." So at 10:45 p.m. in the final rounds, I decided that I would just push that much harder. And I managed to push my foot into my partner's heel and break my foot, which meant I was not going to be in the pageant. And so I am not somebody who cries in my milk very much. Like everybody, I've had a lot of really horrible things happen in life, but I am a doer and let me think my ways through this. So I said, what am I going to do for 14 weeks while I'm in a boot? And I thought, I always wanted to try acting. I reached out to a dance teacher who linked me to Lane Napper, the most fabulous professional actor. Many people will know his name, and choreographer. And I've been working in improv acting and musical theater. Now, that is a whole new world and so much fun that I highly recommend to everyone. But what it taught me, and I was lucky enough that Connecticut said, we're not going to hold a pageant in 2025. We want you to represent us. And that was just great. So I have had, a number of months to develop a business plan because I'm a business girl. I'm not the float on the parade. Sorry, I'll wear the crown and the sash when you want me to, but I want to do things. And the mission of the Miss Senior America is to encourage and support older women and to speak back and share your wisdom with younger women. And so I took some time and I hired researchers to figure out what are the issues facing women over 60 that they really care about. And emerging were these core pillars of health: physical health, emotional health, mental, relationships, spirituality, purpose, meaning. And I even put sleep in its own category. And so that's what I am working on. I am working on speaking out to women, really on aging with purpose. And, for me, it's having a core, and you've got to find your core. You've got to find what are your values that undermine and underlie your purpose and your big inside.
Well, and that's interesting because you've transitioned from all of these different things, right? And I think when
Yes.
you get to be over 50 and you're even talking over 60, which I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's going to believe that you're over 60 anyway. But you really have to start to define yourself and your values as separate from these titles.
Yes.
Like you're not just a business person, you're not just a dancer, you're
No.
not just a pageant winner. Like all of these things, like how do you stay grounded and focused without losing yourself? And I mean, the amount of things that you've done, like I am not doing nearly as much as what you like. That seems
Yeah.
all fabulous.
Yeah.
Like, how do you stay grounded and focused on these pillars if these things are like, how do you keep your health in check? How do you keep some of these things in check? And
Yeah.
what do you think's most important?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm going to say that, I think um, living a life with as much humility as you can is critical. And yes, I am in a world in a lot of different ways that takes me to certain kinds of people. But I'm always making sure that I'm doing volunteer work that takes me to the full gamut of the world. So, people who are disadvantaged, people who need a hand. I That's very important to me, to be one-on-one with people so that I don't get just one slice of life, which is not the most important slice. Yes, it's, fun and I'm happy for a day when I win a title, but that's not my real joy. My real joy is my undercurrent of knowing that there is this amazing God who loves me no matter what. And that comes from seeing him in people. It's not like I get somebody in my earbuds. It's seeing him in people, seeing him in nature, seeing him in beauty. So that's how I stay grounded. And I do believe that if you don't take care of yourself first, how are you going to serve anybody else? I mean, that is so critical. And if you want to call me selfish, then I will happily say I'm selfish because I do take the time every day to work out. I am really conscious of what's going on in my body. I've been in menopause since 31. That's not a joke. You have to sort of stay on top of that. And if I'm having a struggle with something that's affecting me emotionally that I can't manage myself or reframe myself, I will reach out to a therapist. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just the way it is.
Yeah. No, I think so. And you've said this, and it was very important whenever we talked about it, but seeking God in all things.
Yeah,
And so you even went down a path of like becoming a spiritual guide and like training, really, like, like somebody would
yeah,
go and get a credential or get some sort of training. So how did that help you kind of center as all of
yeah,
these things are happening,
yeah.
or if you felt stuck, because a lot of our population has been doing the same relationship, the same maybe
Right.
toxic situation, and they feel stuck, and they're hearing you talk and they're like, oh, that's so great that you did all of those things, but like, how do
Yeah,
they start
yeah,
to let either God, universe, whatever,
yes.
some sort of spiritual base guide them in flow or whatever? And how did it help you?
Okay, so I'll say three things, and I don't think they'll like one of them. So, number one, yes, seeking God in all things is a principle of St. Ignatius, who founded the Jesuit order. And when you walk out your front door every morning and you say to yourself, let me try to notice three things that are lovely that just bubble up inside of me, that is the beginning of seeking God in everything, because God is everywhere, but you're not going to see him if your brain is thinking the same old 60,000 thoughts it thinks every day, which 80% of them are redundant. If you're not just, half thinking about your issues when you're walking to your car and you're not noticing little lovely things that are placed in your path. So, number one, open your eyes and say to yourself, what are three things I can notice today? That little practice can start taking you out of your negativity, because I believe that negative mindsets or being stuck is a habit. The only person you can change is yourself. You cannot change much in life, but
Mhm.
you can change yourself. And it means taking micro steps. It's not going to happen magically. So that's number one. Number two, and this is the part, I admit it's hard, but the oldest living woman in the world just died at 117. And people asked her, what is the key for how you live so long? And you know what she said? Get rid of bad people in your life. And yes, I know that's hard. I'm not saying that and have not walked in some of your viewers' steps. It's hard. I know that. It takes courage. It takes courage, and it takes a leap of faith if you have it, or a leap of whatever. But there are resources. There are resources, free resources if you need. So
Yeah.
I would say that get rid of bad people. They do not serve you, they zap your energy, they do not allow you to be what you were born to be. And you
Mhm.
might think you can't live without them. Maybe it's a little bit of an addiction, but trust me, you can and you will.
Well, and we actually just talked about that in the circle this week, and how as you change, right? As you better yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, you are changing, but the other people
Yeah,
around you are not. And they may
right,
also not like that you're changing. And so it means
right.
letting go of those people, letting go of relationships, seeking out other, really motivating people to center yourselves around, like even in the stages of life, like I partied a lot. And so I hung out with people that were always partying. And then when I didn't, they were like, well, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to feel bad
Yeah,
every morning. Like it's
yeah,
just not working
yeah,
for me as I got
yeah,
older, in
yeah,
menopause, it's not
yeah.
working for me anymore. And
No,
so I had to start surrounding myself with people that like wanted to get up early on a Saturday and go for a hike. And that is not everyone,
yeah, yeah,
or wanted to go like to a book thing or a meditation,
yeah,
seminar, or even like, maybe a spiritual reading or,
yeah,
something, even more woo woo, but you've had this experience from a body perspective as well. And so if we're
Yeah.
talking about kind of mind, body, soul, what have you experienced as you've gone through some of these transitions of health,
Yeah.
and how it's just a whole different ball, and it's not what they tell you about, right?
No.
I mean, I went into early menopause, and I've just ignored it. Essentially, I've just been like, I'm too
Ooh.
young for that.
I don't know if you
Right.
want to do that. Okay,
I
I'm
know.
going to answer your question, but I want to say one more thing that's going to make people uncomfortable on the previous.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
gave you like micro noticing things.
yep.
Okay. The third thing is you've got to forgive. Like
Mm,
there's no sense of changing yourself. And by the way, when you do start changing, the other person's going to change. Even as you said, if they don't like you, that's a change. So don't
yeah,
worry. Just worry about what you're going to do for yourself. But you got to forgive. If you get rid
yeah.
of the bad people and you're still harboring contempt,
Mm,
anger, something negative, guess who's winning? You're not winning. You're spending all that mental and emotional energy holding on to a black spot.
Well, and forgiving yourself right now for thinking that you're behind. Like, I should have left
Oh,
him, or I should have reinvented myself, or I should have left that
yeah,
job. Like, who
yeah.
cares? Everything is
Who
in perfect
cares?
timing. Like,
Yeah,
you're at this point, you're listening to this because it's a perfect time to kind of blossom and do something different. Take
yeah,
I mean, you're not the second or third person that's like, stop ignoring your health, Melissa. Like, I have to then just say, okay, I forgive myself for treating
yeah,
myself badly in the past, but what are you going to do now? How are you going to
right.
reinvent? How are you going to make steps forward that are different, right?
You know what I think about often? Like we think we're everything because we're living in this moment, but we're really nothing. There's been billions of years. So who cares if it's taken you 50 or 60 or I'm almost 70 years to, figure something out? It does not matter. What matters is today and going forward. Do not worry
Mm-hmm,
about the past because guess what? It doesn't serve you. It
mm-hmm,
does not serve you.
mm-hmm. Well, and a lot of times, there are lessons, and I tell a lot of people, especially when they're in these really horrific situations of, family abuse or emotional abuse kind of situations, that this creates a story that you can help others with. This creates
Yeah,
a life path and lessons that you can maybe guide others to avoid some of these little potholes. And I
yeah.
think that you do that with a lot of groups and with a lot of women. And I don't know if you want to talk about any of those, but certainly you've done a tremendous amount. And we can also talk about the menopause wherever you want to go
Yeah,
next. It's
yeah.
it's free flowing.
Let me say one thing. Look at, I like to win, obviously. I don't go anywhere not trying to win. But number one, the minute you win, fine, that's in the past. It's not going to change anything else. The next day, whether I win or lose, I'm still me. I still have my same to do. And the other thing is, I learn way more by I won't even call them failures, my non wins. I learned
Mhm.
way more with the super difficult clients where we, lost out on a multiple bid or something didn't work out in a real estate transaction or I didn't win a big competition. That now I'm not wanting that for October with the national title. But so I'm pulling that right back from the universe. But honestly, that's where you grow. If you
Mhm.
have the perfect life with no issues, like why are you not carrying a cross? Everybody carries a cross. That's where you're going to get the tar on your tire that you're going to be proud of at the end of the day.
Well, and like I feel like I do such amazing things, and usually they are behind closed doors.
Yeah,
Only a select few understand
yeah,
this. Like I did something. Oh my gosh, I changed somebody's life. I saved them
yeah.
millions. I found them millions, and then I come home and I look to my kids and I was like, "Do you know what I did today?" And they're just like, "Yeah, what's for dinner? Like, can you take me? I need to go get a belt from the store." Like And I'm like, wait, like, and so it's interesting because it was a learning for me of like, yes, you're taught to strive for all of those accolades, but at the end of the day, my kids absolutely do not care about it. And it doesn't necessarily define me, but I started to be like, wait, I love the journey. Like I
Yeah,
love the fact that I did things that worked, that then I
yeah,
shifted them and it worked somewhere else. And so the
yeah,
journey is a big part of the learning process, but also spiritually, I think it's shifted me into knowing that whatever that journey is at that given time is absolutely part of my process, right? It's absolutely going to lead me. And the blind faith, like I think I even pulled a card. I like to pull cards, like not tarot cards,
yeah,
but they're more
yeah,
like, you know, give me some guidance. And yesterday I was just like, frustrated about something and it said, trust the timing, trust the wave you came in on. Timing is not running out. And I was just like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to take it easy
yeah,
on
yeah,
myself because
yeah, yeah.
I'm so hard on myself, like
Okay, so yeah, you said a couple things that we just have to talk about now, and
okay.
I love you so much because I can so relate. I have older kids, obviously, they're in their 30s, and your story about you've done something amazing and you tell them and they want the belt from the Gap or whatever. I mean,
Right.
every person listening to this podcast is probably laughing in their cup of tea. But what I would say is, number one, yes, they just need you to be their mother. That's all they care
Mhm.
about. And so when you're doing things that are filling you and filling your purpose, that's for your growth. And I
Mhm.
think that's what you're saying. That's what we're learning. These things are important that we're doing. And hopefully we're giving it some thought process along the way. We're thinking about what values are important to me, which are going to roll up to why am I here? What is
Mhm.
my purpose? What do I want people to think about when I'm no longer here about me? What would they
Mhm.
say about me that I want them to say about me? I mean,
Mhm.
that's all for you. That's your you. But yeah, as far as the kids, they just need you to be the mom, which makes me laugh so hard because I was like that for a while too. And now I have to keep reminding myself with all my stuff, they don't care. And it's fine. Why should they? They just need me to be the mom and to babysit if possible.
Well, and I think in my family, we wanted independence, like true,
Yeah,
like as I went on my spiritual journey, there is attachment. And really, like the monks, if you look at monks and how they get
yeah,
to the highest realm of spirituality, it is to be unattached to things. Like right now, my 16-year-old is away in Boston, and I have not spoken to them since from 4:30 a.m. on Monday until now. They take their phones. It's a school trip. They're having a blast. And I thought yesterday, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't been hyper concerned. I haven't been worrying. I haven't been
yeah,
now. That morning, I did pray and say, please, put a
yeah,
bubble around them and bring them back safe and do all this stuff. But
yeah,
I think it's just very interesting that I know that they are having an amazing time. I know that they're not worrying about what's
yeah,
happening at home because we're having these independent lives and then coming back and kind of sharing what amazing
yeah,
things we did. Like how do you kind of cultivate that and how do you continue to seek out? You said
yeah,
again, I don't think people are going to think that you're close to 70. They're going to still like totally be like baloney. But like, how do you continue to reinvent yourself
yeah,
as opposed to go sit in the nursing home and,
right,
like watch TV and come up with all of these things? Is it
yeah,
divine guidance? Is it,
yeah.
you just wanting to do better for yourself?
Okay, first of all, I want to touch on what you just talked about in the whole being attached to things. So, again, in St. Ignatius language, that is called disordered attachments. And it's
Mm,
anything that you are spending an inordinate amount of your heart and your time and your mind on that is not bringing you closer to God. So, it could be, as you're saying, maybe, your phone or it's your children, or it's like, to be honest with you, I really felt last year, 2024, I was getting a little disordered attachment on dance. I was spending 20 hours a week It was all about, chasing that number one. And I think God, being God, like, a little foot brake is gonna put you into taking a look at what you were saying in the back of your mind. Am I getting a little too attached to this? So the minute you're getting an attachment to something that is getting in the way of your, let's just call it love flow, God, love
Mhm.
flow, whatever, that's not a good thing. So
Mhm.
I'm really happy to hear that, you're just kind of opening the nest and saying you're loving freely, you're letting it go. And
Mhm.
that is a lot of my mindset, is just being very kind of free and trying to be available to God and not holding things too tightly. Or,
Mhm.
maybe something will be breaking in my body. Now, back to your question about reinventing and, where do I get my inspiration from? First of all, I am here to tell all your viewers, I saw for 18 years every week what it's like to sit in a nursing home. And I
Mhm.
always said to myself, since a very young age, I don't want to be doing that. And so I am, Melissa, trying to squeeze every drop out of what I've got inside me until the day where I'm going to have to accept that cross. And
Mhm.
so I think my motivation is part is I want to fulfill what the Lord put me here for. And that's figuring out what are the gifts he gave me? What am I good at? What do I enjoy? And what's going to serve others? And so I keep just looking around for that. And I am now on the brink, obviously, of thinking about my next chapter. And, I'm a business person. Usually I have a very clean business plan and I kind of execute it. And this time I'm taking time to really go back to what are my values and the things I'm considering. Are they feeding into my ultimate purpose of seeking God? And let me be honest with you, it's messy. It's not the clean business mind that I normally have. I've given myself 5, 6 months to kind of explore things and murk around in the mud. And I had to send one idea to the graveyard because I didn't think at the end of the day it was the right thing. But I'm trying to approach it with, you know what? Great that I have a little bit of time that I can think through options. And yes,
Mhm.
maybe we need to still earn money. Maybe we need to fit it into a certain time schedule. But I have the creative capacity to just think large. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm figuring out the next chapter. And it's starting to, the haze is clearing. I'm starting to see where I might go. And yes, I believe very much that there's somebody larger than myself who's part of this journey with me. And I'm also bringing in, people that are close to me and sort of
Yeah.
testing out ideas.
Well, and a lot of divorce, just like you breaking your ankle
Yeah.
or your foot is, like there were probably these signs that you saw that were like, slow down,
Yeah.
like hold on,
Yeah.
you're pushing yourself too much. And yet a lot of times we don't listen to them. And so,
Right.
we always talk about first you get a whisper, then you get kind of the slap
Yeah.
in the face, and then you get thrown against the wall. Divorce is a forced reset, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
everything is going to
Yeah.
change. It could be, I mean, and it could be your house, it could be everything.
Right.
What would you say to somebody that's kind of in, like, so you're almost in this forced to reflect and kind of look
Right.
at what, and I love what you said about purpose and serving, because I think that that's a key that we just think, okay, how am I going to go make money? How am I going to go reinvent myself? How am I going to chase my joy? But
Right.
but it's also some service in there, and how can put those skills to use. But when you have this divorce reset and you're really clouded and can't really think, like what is some of your training and background kind of said, like how do you start to reflect, or what are some of
Yeah.
the tangible steps
Yeah.
that you would take?
I'm going to tell you what I think is the easiest step. And look, I haven't gone through divorce personally, but it's certainly I've had lots of friends and many, many clients who have been in the throngs of divorce. So I've seen it very upfront, particularly dealing with we need to sell a house. I need to figure out where I'm living. So the height of stress. And here's what I would say. And it's so I was going to say easy to do, but it's maybe not easy to do, but it is free. Take 10 minutes every morning and just sit and try not to have the same thoughts go through your mind. It's called centering prayer, actually. And it's a practice that I do that started in the 1960s. Um, Out of the Catholic Church. But all you do is you just sit and make yourself available. You just show up. You show up and you do not think about, what's changing. I can't stand him. Why did this happen to me? Why me? Why not you? I mean, what? Just don't even worry about it. It just is as is. Just sit there for 10 minutes. You are not going to feel anything. You're going to say, that was a waste of my time. I promise you, you keep showing up every morning, and maybe you can't do 10 minutes, whatever you can do, something in you is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start simmering, and once you can lift your head off the pillow a little bit, yeah, don't try to make these big, broad, dramatic decisions. Just start thinking about what in my life before things turned the way they turned, did I love? What was I good at? What really made me happy? What brought me that bubble up joy? Go backwards and look at your history. And by the way, when you're doing your quiet time, you're thinking, go to some place that's helpful that's not sitting in your house. Like go to a library, go to the beach, take a nature walk, wherever is helpful, sit in a church, wherever you go that just helps you be calm and not think, well, I'm sitting here, I should be doing that load of laundry.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you'll find this interesting. One of the things that we talk about in the Divorce Allies Circle or the membership is dictating your story and really just, as much emotion and
Yeah.
getting it all out. Some people will journal, but we're
Yeah.
saying, tell it and record it, and we use it for, negotiation purposes and position statements and all those things. But a lot of the reason for it is because you're running through those stories over and over and over in your mind. And a
Yeah.
lot of type A personalities, such as us, never shut it off. And
Yeah.
so this centering or this grounding, although it may be difficult, it's almost the precursor to meditation, right? You first have
Yes.
to center, sometimes there's breathing techniques
Yep. Breathing
or
techniques are great. Yep. Breath work.
refocus. If you're in nature, I think you can also do what you're talking about, which is look for those three things. I'm
Yep.
always like, okay, give me a sign. Like, show me,
Yeah.
what should I do? Should I
Yeah.
go to the office?
Yeah.
Should I just
Yeah.
stay in nature? What should I do? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're reminding me of a couple of things. One is there's another practice that I really like that I do every night called Three Graces. I call it Three Graces. And right before I go to sleep, I try to think about three things that were just grace filled. And like the other day, I was coming home from a trip and there was a taxi driver, near the luggage thing. And he was singing and bouncing a tennis ball, and everyone thought he was so odd, but he was so happy. So I'm like, I'll take you. That was a grace for my day. He just filled me up. He was
Yeah.
just overflowing with love. So think about three graces, and I'll do a couple things. Again, it'll get you noticing. You'll go to sleep with something positive on your mind. So that's one thing. And then I wanted to come back to your journaling. So one thing in spiritual direction that when I have a new directee, sometimes I will have them do this practice, and it's sort of a tapestry of God, let's say. I ask them to go back and write down their story of their walk with God and all the places they've seen God in their life and where God has shown up. Now, I know if you're going through divorce, you might be really mad at God, but I would just say, put the madness aside. Fine, he's fine with people being mad at him. People are angry with him all the time. He doesn't care about that. Just sit there and write your story, write your God story. And it might surprise you to see, wait a minute, I'm going through this horrific thing, but there's been an undercurrent. How is that
Mm-hmm.
undercurrent? What is that undercurrent about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. At night when I used to not be able to sleep very easily, I would just go through like I'm grateful and I would just keep on naming
Yeah,
things. And I mean, like I would always just like fall right to sleep.
yeah,
But also in kind of looking at the story of spirituality, a lot of times in divorce, we say that everything is just information. So as long as we don't have to say it's good or bad, and we start to
Right.
not really associate it with good or bad, like, oh my gosh, it's so bad that I have to sell
Right.
this house, like, because you also have to start packing up your stuff.
Right.
You're putting cherished family memories in boxes,
Yeah.
and it's going, like, and some of those pictures are not going to go back up on the wall, right?
No.
And it's really trying to figure out how you can flow within there and just see it as information. Like,
Right.
information is, and we encourage, because a lot of times we'll ask women, like, did you like that house? And they'll be like, no, I hated that
Right.
house. It was never the one,
Right.
like, I would
Right.
love a garden, or I would
Right.
love a smaller,
Yeah.
or I would, like,
Yeah.
all of these things. And we're like, well, that's just information. Like, literally, the universe, God is showing you, like, you can now have exactly what you wanted, but you have to let go of being stuck in the familiar or stuck in the old story. So I love, and a lot of women will even say, I'm not, like, when I meet them, they're like, I'm not this person. Like, I am a whole different person. And by the time they kind of get through the divorce, they're back at that old
Yeah.
person that they
Yeah. The
were,
real person.
strong and fierce and,
Yeah.
like, opinionated and all of these
Yeah.
things. So for women who are listening and want some simple things that they can do this week to kind of rediscover their purpose, because you have a very
Yes.
specific purpose, what do you think is helpful in rediscovering a new purpose or an old one that we've kind of hidden and put in the shadow?
Yeah. I think the first thing there is giving yourself allowing yourself to remember. And again, write down who was I? Like, you've hit on a great thing. Now, listen, in real estate, I see it all. So I mean, I see the interaction when husbands and wives or partners are looking at homes. I see who's the alpha dog, and who's saying okay. And to your point, I see people settling because the other has a stronger voice. But if you
Mhm.
start to either write down, and writing down is good because then it's right there in black and white for you to look at, you know, who, what words would I give about myself, my real self, my 10-year-old self, my
Mm,
15-year-old self, my 20-year-old self, my before married self. That is who you are. That person didn't go away. They're just covered over, like
mhm,
snow covers up grass. That's all.
mhm,
And you just got
mhm,
to start changing. Well, you don't have to do anything, but it'd be great if you could just begin to forgive, let go. And even if you have to fool yourself, like sometimes I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I fool myself and say, this is going to be great. And I don't know if it's going to be great, but I just say, there's something in here. Let me see if I can learn the one thing. It's like if you go
mhm,
to a really bad grocery store and you say, what am I going to buy in here? All the fruit and everything looks really old. I make it a game. I go, can I find one thing? And I
mm,
think you could kind of do that with, your life at this moment. What's the one thing? Let me grab onto that. Doesn't have to be a
mm,
whole bunch of things.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
and let me think back to who am I? Nobody can help you do that but yourself. Well, okay, a professional could, but no one's going to sit there and say, let's go through this. But you can do it. And it's kind of fun to remember, who was I and who am I still? It's just covered over like snow.
I think it is difficult for women who have been in these, relationships where the power dynamic has really been in the spouse,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so coming back out of that and being like, okay, it's not somebody else that's going to help me. It's not somebody else that's going to fix me, right?
Yeah.
No one's going to have the answers of how I feel better after this.
Right.
It's really introspection and saying, okay, what can I hold on to? What's going to anchor me in this reality and that I can build upon going forth? And, I even encourage people to start doing everything different, like take different ways to work,
Yeah.
go to different coffee shops, go to
Yeah.
different grocery stores and bookshops, and everything then can open up the possibilities of there being opportunities that were sitting right there. Like, in my belief system, abundance exists concurrently, like it is
Right.
right there. We
Right.
talk about, like, the $1 million is in you receive the check, but it's going to have to clear, and it's going to take 7 days to clear. What do you do in that space
Right.
when it's already there? Maybe you
Yeah.
would go down some different path.
I,
So,
I I
yeah,
think that is really great what you're suggesting to them because it's so practical and easy to do. But I want to grab onto something you spoke about a minute ago in terms of finding your voice. So if the spouse has had the stronger voice and your voice has been a little dormant for some years, how do you start finding it? Well, you just made me think about, you've got to go practice. I mean, improv comes to my mind because I'm doing it, but everyone's not going to love facing your fears in improv, although I do highly recommend it if it all sounds appealing. But if not that, even if you don't want to join a group, think about joining something where you can just find your voice, whether it is, a simple fitness class or something you used to do that you stopped doing, where
yeah,
you will have yourself and only yourself there. It'll help you find your voice, whether it's your physical voice or your confidence voice. Because I think what we're talking about is getting my confidence back, getting my mojo back, getting my self-esteem back.
yeah. Well, and my mother, she's gone now, but she loved improv, and she thought she was so funny, and she was so kooky and crazy. But I think the interesting part about improv, and what she talked about, is it makes you slightly uncomfortable.
Oh yeah,
You have other people around you. There's no set thing that's supposed to
yeah,
happen,
no,
and it's almost like you have to tap into that intuition and that essence of going with the flow kind of situation, and uncomfortable like if you've been in your house all the time, like I don't like to go out very often,
right, right,
and so putting yourself in that uncomfortable situation now allows you to have a bigger voice. And, so it could be anything, trying anything new, going into spaces where you
yeah.
haven't been before really help. But I think this has been amazing. Do you have any kind of parting things before we talk about how people can get a hold of you, or, kind of if they want to get more God centered? What are kind of your parting suggestions for people on a journey?
Well, number one, if there is somebody who is listening to this or watching this and we talked about something that I could be helpful with, even if they need a resource, definitely reach out. We're all doing this and we have no idea where it goes. So I want to put that right out there. But I would say, I want to leave you with a message of encouragement. I mean, I know, Melissa, you believe in every viewer, and I know in every viewer, there is the capacity, the capacity for real, pure love and the capacity for joy. You just have to refine it and open yourself up to it. And I know that might sound like, ooh, easy for her to say, but hopefully we've talked about some things that are practical, easy first steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, people can connect with you on LinkedIn.
Yep,
Maybe you can talk a little bit about your website and things that you're kind of developing and moving towards as well. Do you want to talk about, or even some
sure.
of the things that, yeah, you get involved in?
Yeah, no, that's a very simple website up on the screen, and it will tell you the different practices that I lead or do one-on-one spiritual direction. So you can learn a little bit about those practices. And there's Spiritual Directors International if you want to see other spiritual directors. So maybe that's something that you're feeling called or interested in. You can just sort of see what that's all about. But I am just my own journey. I'm continuing to um, do some things to deepen, particularly my serving one-on-one the sick and the poor. So I think it's really important to have just space and time with your personal God, but also connecting in your community.
Yeah. And there's an email address if you want to
Yeah,
reach out to you directly. And, as we kind of end the session, we thought that this would be a really short session, but we just got too engaged and loved it. And connecting online, we didn't talk about some of the health, and we might have you come back because we have
sure.
created a journal for the Divorce Allies membership that we're sending out this week that also follows the moon. And so we
Oh,
kind of believe that, women go in cycles, and even if
yeah,
you're in menopause, you're still cycling with the moon or with other kind of natural sources. And so, it's really resetting your body, mind, and soul
yeah,
after 50, after 60, or really at any age. And so we appreciate all of the information that you've provided, and certainly reach out. We didn't even touch on, some of the groups that you're affiliated with in mentoring girls and other women. So you have a lot of knowledge that I think could be shared, and reach out. Robin, we really appreciate you, and we hope to have you back on, because I think this was a great conversation and we could go even more in depth in any
yeah,
topics. So,
yeah.
anything else you want to share
No,
before
I just
we?
want to thank you for having a podcast that really talks about what's most important in life, particularly when we're, in sensitive stages and periods. So
Yeah.
thanks for the ministry that you're doing.
Well, and then we all need to say that you're going to be the future Miss Senior America. So let's have that manifest, because I would love to know somebody famous. So this would be great.
Well, it'd be a great opportunity to just be helpful to other women.
Yeah,
So, let's go.
absolutely. You're a great representation. So we
Thank you.
appreciate you, and we will see you soon.
Thanks so much.